This is the Average to Savage podcast with Paul Guarino. Everyone and anyone, athletes, celebs, and much more.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Average Savage podcast. Our special guest today is Ryan Vargas. Ryan, how's it going?
Good. Just recovering from eating a bunch of food this week. I slept until about 40 minutes ago, so I'm well rested.
For sure. And we got a special guest host, Cody, a.k.a. Coco Ahern. What's up, Cody?
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, I had pretty good too, Ryan. It was a good holiday. I wasn't as blessed to get a sleep till about 40 minutes ago though, so I've been up a little bit.
I don't get to do that often, so when I get the chance, I take advantage of it.
Yeah, you're probably a busy guy for sure.
Oh yeah. No, I'm taking full advantage of these few days here.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Just going back in time a little bit, could you tell us where you grew up and then how you got into racing?
Yeah, so I grew up just outside of LA in La Mirada, California. I loved cars, loved anything with four wheels and a motor, whether it was, NASCAR, monster trucks, road racing, sports car, Formula One, whatever it was. As long as it had four wheels and a motor, it was something that I really loved. And one day, my parents took me to our local short track, Irwindale Speedway, and I found out that I saw kids racing. I saw them racing these little cars, and I was like, wow, this is cool. Like, this is something that, I would love to do. I tried all other sports, basketball, football, soccer. I was horrible at all of them. Didn't have fun. Honestly, just hated it. I was so bored out of my mind. I couldn't wait to get home and watch Monster Jam highlights. And then, so I found out kids can race, and there was a recess aide from my elementary school at the race, and I was like, what are you doing here? Like, this is interesting. And she says, oh yeah, my son is driving today. We're actually planning on selling our car. And so my immediate reaction was, we need to do this. Like, I want to do this really bad. So we end up purchasing the car. My first ever lap in the car, I crashed. I didn't know what I was doing. But we got it fixed, and I ended up finishing the entire rest of that test day. And I remember my dad on the drive home. It was a 45-minute drive from the racetrack to my house, and he said, "All right, now you've driven the car. You can." And I was like 10 at the time. He said, "Okay, you can decide right now. We can do one of two things. We can go to K1 Speed on the weekends, or go to a go-kart track, have fun with some friends, and kind of make it a hobby and just, do whatever. Or, we could actually do this and pursue racing. But if we do this, we're going to make you a champion, and we're not going to settle for any less." And he was like, you got the whole drive. It's almost an hour. Let me know what you think. About 5 minutes later, I said I wanted to drive the race car. And since then, I'm made it to where I'm at, which is insane.
That's awesome.
That's a dream shot. So were you driving like quarter midgets, go-karts?
So what it was called was a bandolero. They're a bit of a step up from like quarter midgets. It's like a third scale, I would say, sized stock car. They have a little 30 horsepower Briggs & Stratton lawnmower motor in them. But they get up to speed pretty good. Like restricted, you'll top out about 60, 65. Unrestricted, I got clocked at 102 one time at 12, 11 years old.
You're just racing short tracks,
short tracks and road courses. It was funny. My only road course experience prior to racing NASCAR was bandolero racing when I was really young.
That's wild. Do you like short tracks better yet, or are you a road course fan?
I am a road course fan. I wish, I got to do a test recently driving a late model at a short track, and that was a real blast. And it really helped me kind of rebuild my confidence a little bit on the short track side, because we've had a lot of speed on the short tracks this year, but we had mechanical failures. Like Richmond, we had our fuel head break. Martinsville, we were just kind of missed it a little bit. And then this most recent Martinsville race, we had the battery connection come undone, so we never had the performance we needed. But, I love I love short tracks. Road courses are very fun. I really love the intermediates, the 1.5 miles and above. I love going into a corner at 180, 190 miles an hour and hoping it sticks. It's so fun.
Oh yeah, that's just gotta pull you every which way, man. I couldn't imagine. It's gotta be a different feeling, and I'm sure it's an addictive feeling too.
I mean, it's totally different than what I, ever could have imagined. I didn't think I'd be able to race at some of these tracks. But now, I'm going to them. I'm showing up to the Daytonas, the Charlotte Motor Speedways, the Talladegas, and I'm going out there and I'm actually doing it. And it's something that's really cool. And I try to keep into perspective how cool that really is.
Yeah, what was it like the first time you just got on the track at Talladega and just opened that thing up?
So,
I mean,
for people who don't know about Daytona or Talladega, Talladega, because of the track being 2.6 miles long, it's an oval that is 2.6 miles long. So if they didn't put a restrictor plate, which a restrictor plate goes on top of the motor underneath the carburetor, and it restricts airflow, which also limits horsepower to about 400 horsepower. Around that number. Normally we pump out anywhere around like 670, 650. So it's already cutting down quite a bit. And they do that to keep the speed down, but what it ends up doing is it ends up putting us in a pack of cars. Like a pack being all 30 race cars being basically glued together because the air bubble around us, the drafting element, is so big. That's how you race. So my first ever lap at Talladega was in 2020. And for those who don't know, in 2020, NASCAR stopped doing practice and qualifying. You just showed up to the racetrack, unloaded, and raced. So I went out. I started towards the rear because I didn't race the race prior, and because they did a formula where they did wherever the driver finished last week, kind of is where they kind of even out. I didn't race, so I started at the tail. I started 35th or something like that, and I take the green flag with 39 other race cars at Talladega, and my first lap is at speed in a pack, going 190 something miles an hour with 39 other cars.
That's crazy.
And that was a very big wake-up moment.
It's got to be. I mean, I've seen it on TV and watching those super speedways and the way they race. I mean, I can't even imagine what it feels like when you get someone side drafting you or bump drafting you and they don't even touch you and you get sideways coming out of that corner.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just, it's got to be so many different things that you're learning out there on that NASCAR circuit compared to what you grew up racing.
And the way you set the cars up for those types of racetracks is you don't set them up to drive good. You just set them up to be fast. They are set up to be as fast as they can in a straight line. No drag, drag, whether it's mechanical or actual aerodynamic. And so if you kind of get a little out of shape, it is very hard to save a race car. I remember the Daytona race in February of last year. There was a wreck in front of me. And I start slowing down to avoid it. And suddenly, as I'm hitting the brakes, slowing down, grabbing gear, trying to downshift, the car just spins out. It just spins out, and I spin into the grass going still a buck 40. And it was the most insane experience. And something that's very not talked about is when the grass at a racetrack is wet and a car slides into it. It gets so quiet, and it feels like the car picks up speed. So I'm sliding through the grass, going backwards. I threw the car in neutral already because I don't want to mess up the engine transmission, and I'm just sitting there rolling, and it's just quiet. It is so silent as you're just sliding there, hoping you don't hit anybody.
I know you mentioned you hated other sports and things like that. So, how do you make your way up the racing circuit? Obviously, in other sports, it's there's kind of a quote unquote system, but racing, how did it work, and then how did you make it to the NASCAR Xfinity Series?
Yeah, so the biggest thing, and so the way auto racing is, and it's like this in every form of auto racing, is the biggest factor that most drivers have to overcome is the financial barrier. It is so big, it is so crucial, especially in today's day and age, that a lot of drivers who have the financial backing make it. Well, unlike that, in my situation, my mom is a first grade teacher. My dad is a construction worker. So we were very much, when we were racing at the local level, we were operating off of what we had and what we could possibly do. And I remember in August of 2017, when I was 16 years old, my parents sat me down at the dinner table, and they basically said, look, we can't do this anymore. Like, this is it. You know, we could maybe do 4 or 5 races next year, just have some fun, but we can't race consistently. You know, this is it. And I was like, okay, because, you know, I've witnessed friends of mine, you know, lose all they had to go racing. Like, I've seen people lose houses and, you know, sell off all of their stuff just to race. And it's like, you know, I never wanted to do that. I never wanted anything to happen there. You know, and that's the unfortunate thing is when you're racing at that local level, a majority of the money you spend is your own. So we were, you know, we did what we could with what we had, but we were done. Well, in that same month, I applied for the NASCAR Drive for Diversity program to get a ride in the NASCAR. At the time it was the NASCAR K&N Pro Series East. Now it's the ARCA Menards East. I applied, and what they do is they send you off to the time we did that was down in Daytona, and they send you off to a combine. It's you know, when I say combine, people think of the NFL combine. It's pretty similar. And what they do is there's 3 big sections. There's media / marketability. So this is how you are in front of a microphone, how you are in interviews, how you are in press conferences. Then the third is physical fitness. How are you on that, you know, compared to everybody? Can you handle driving a race car for several hours in 120, 130, 140 degree heat? And number 3 is actual on track. How are you stacking up compared to everybody else behind the wheel? And so I go to the combine, you know, I do my thing, and I feel I did pretty good, but, you know, you never know, because you never know what they may want. Fortunately, I get the call, and I'm told I'm going to have a ride. And so this is big. So I move, you know, I'm a junior in high school at the time. I leave home. I go across the country from Southern California to North Carolina, and I finish my high school online, you know, do a year of K&N East. Ended up doing only 1 year there. It was a 3-car organization at the time. They dropped down to a 2-car organization, which they are now. And although I did beat, like, my teammate in the points, it was still a case of I was still the new guy, and so I was kind of, like, unfortunately left on the outs, which is fine. I mean, again, it's business. Like I mentioned earlier, it's all about how much you've invested, and they've invested more into him than me. So it's like, okay. But that took me out of knowing what I was going to do in 2019. And so I had my kind of like moment where I just kind of was like out of it. You know, I really had to sit there in my apartment in North Carolina and ask myself, you know, is this really it? Like I didn't know what I was doing anymore. Fortunately, I landed a sponsor for the first time to go race late models. So basically kind of take a step back. And I did that because I wanted to make sure, because you can go run late models for a relatively good budget, a competitive late model. And so I wanted to go out there and just make sure that I was driving something. You know what I mean? Like I knew that it wasn't going to be feasible for me to find money to go run ARCA or K&N. You know, I just knew it. But I knew if I wasn't racing in that, I needed to make sure that I was still keeping my, you know, skill set sharp behind the wheel. And that entire time I'm thinking to myself, like, oh man, do I actually have a place here? Do I actually, you know, belong here? We go out, you know, to Irwindale Speedway. I ran 30 races that year. I split the season. I ran 18 at Irwindale and I think 12 on the East Coast at different tracks. My first race back in a late model, we won it. And so that to me was like, okay, I still could drive. Like I could do that at least. And I'm like, okay, well now what's the next step? And after talking with so many people, they said, dude, you need to go run an Xfinity race. They were like, go run an Xfinity race. Don't make a fool of yourself. Just go out there and finish. So I, you know, have some conversations with Johnny Davis over at JD Motorsports. And, it opened up an opportunity for me to go race at Iowa Speedway, which is a track that I had experience at racing in the K&N Series. And, to me, that place really fit my driving style. It was such a fun racetrack. It is criminal. We don't go there on the schedule anymore. But I show up, and I remember being so nervous because I was like, this is my opportunity to decide if I still should do this. Because, I could go run late models and win in late models. Late models are one thing. You're racing in the NASCAR Xfinity Series now. These guys are paid professionals. So I go in, and I'm telling myself, I can't crash. I can't crash. I don't want to finish, in the back. I knew if I went out there and sucked, I was done. I knew it. I knew if I went out there and completely flopped, it was going to be game over for me. And so to keep in perspective as well, for teams such as the JD Motorsports and some of these, smaller organizations, running inside the top 20 is kind of where you want to be. People might hear that and it's oh, you want to win though. It's every team has their range, there is, and that's just what they're capable of. And that's fine. I've ran, now 4 years there, but so when I say we're in the top 20, top 15, people may be oh, that's not a big deal. It is. Because that means you're putting it right at or just past where that car belongs. And so I go out there, qualified 23rd, beat my teammates, which was a good thing. Race comes along, and we're running inside the top 15. We're dicing it up with some of these guys, and I, keeping my nose clean. That's the big thing is I'm not really going out there to damage the car. There was a few scuffs here and there. It's a 250 lap race. You're gonna have a little bit of damage here and there. Finished the race. I crossed the line, and we finished 17th. We finished well inside the top 20. We had a shot at the top 15. The only thing that held the car back was the driver with no experience. And I get out of the car, tired as heck, and I just remember the line of, drivers, crew guys, team owners coming over and shaking my hand and telling me I'd done a good job. And that told me that I had a place still. And from there, we've ran 67 races, I think, now in Xfinity, which is insane. Very thankful for that.
So, but how does it, so you were in North Carolina, and then somebody just, they asked, oh yeah, you said you were in the program, but how did they ask you to run the Xfinity race, the first one?
So I had to find the funding to do so. I had to find, sponsorship dollar. I had to do all that. So that once I had that accumulated, I was able to go and do that race.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where we had the sponsor dollar, we had, money we've accumulated and stuff because we hadn't been paying for racing or anything. So it was okay, let's just go out and try and do this.
Yeah. Now, I know you were talking about sponsors, and in 2020, actually, TikTok sponsored you. So
Mm-hmm.
how did that one come about?
So at the time, I was one of probably 4 NASCAR drivers on the platform, and that was a big thing for me because I just wanted to see okay, this is something that not many NASCAR fans are on. I wanted to do it, and I remember in passing telling my buddy Ryan Pistana, who's a very talented graphic designer, saying this is I'm on TikTok, I get a couple thousand views here and there, it's actually pretty fun to be on. And during the pandemic, while we're all locked inside, he out of nowhere just puts out a rendering of what my car, the car that I was driving, would look like with TikTok all over it. And it circulates, it gets a lot of likes, lots of retweets, and it actually somehow makes its way to TikTok. Some of the folks at TikTok see it, and they see it and they're like, why not? We've had to we've had to revise all of our marketing plans in 2020. Why not add something like this on top of it? And so, through word of mouth, they, we get in touch, and our conversations go from talking about 1 races to 2 races to 4 races to now 6 races to finish out the 2020 season. And that deal was such a pivotal moment in my career because I had landed small sponsor deals here and there just trying to make ends meet. But that was the first major company that I had worked directly with. on a, you know, a big sponsorship partnership scale. And that in itself has opened up a lot of doors. It's proven to a lot of companies and a lot of teams that, one, Ryan Vargas isn't just some guy. He actually is capable of representing your company, whether it's a small regional company or a global tech giant. And then it also says Ryan Vargas is going to find the most unorthodox way of finding sponsorship, but he will find it. And I think that is something that's been a big thing for me, is that I can go out there and try and find these sponsorships. And, you know, I'm not saying like, okay, I'm the all-knowing sponsor guy, because I am not. If I was, I'd be in a much better position than I am. But it's been a big learning process as I've gone.
In NASCAR, then, is it kind of on the driver to get their sponsor, or the team, or the owner? Like, what is that?
So back in the early 2000s, it was on the team. Now it's on how much money can the driver bring, a lot of the time.
It's your marketability, your brand.
Well, but the thing is, a lot of people nowadays, you know, they have agents, they have marketing teams behind them, they have a marketing agency that they're with. I can't do that at the moment, and that's just simply because I can't afford it. And I haven't had that my entire career. So when I was landing TikTok and Reddit and working with Alvin Kamara and working with Swan Security, working with Williamsburg Contracting, working with Critical Path Security, these were all deals I negotiated on my own. And that was a big thing, because it taught me how to provide value for these certain partners for what they wanted. And now, do I say that that's how I want it to be my entire career? Absolutely not, because I do need to have that freedom to go and actually focus solely on the driving. But at this moment, I'm just not in that situation. Now, am I working to get in that situation where I can be with an agent or a marketing agency or have a manager? Like, absolutely. But at the end of the day, that also costs money. And I don't have money. I don't have
That's
that
huge,
money.
though, dude. You know,
And I don't have that money.
22 years old. That's huge that you've like been able to build those brands, build your brand to that point, and you're out there grinding. And I feel like, you know, you're learning as you do it. You're probably getting better, which is gonna help you at some point when you hand that torch off. You're gonna have the experience yourself, which is huge, you know.
Yeah, and even putting yourself out there, like, that's how you're on this podcast, because Coco saw the tweet, he hit me up, and he was like, "Yo, you gotta get this guy on," and now you're the first NASCAR driver on the podcast.
Look at that. That's cool.
Oh, dude, I'm a huge Ryan Vargas
Heck
fan,
yeah.
man.
No, that's awesome. I mean, that's what I want to do. You know, I don't want to be just like, that's the biggest thing for me, is I was such a fan growing up. I mean, like I said, I loved anything with four wheels and a motor. So, and I know that there's a lot of people out there who have that same passion for racing. And so when I'm as active as I am on Twitter or social media or just anything, it's because I genuinely like want people to know that I am a fan like them. You know, like I want this too. You know, I want this with them. You know, and that's a big deal for me, is showing these people like, hey, I'm like just some normal dude who has figured out how to do, you know, some of these things, who has learned how to do marketing, who like on their own. Like I'm not professionally trained in any of those areas. And I get to drive race cars, and I get to chase a dream that, you know, I'm very fortunate to do that. And I know that's a very fortunate situation to be in. And I carry that with a lot of pride, and I try to show that to people.
I know you kind of already touched on it, but what is your like training regiment like?
So I will train anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. You know, doing physical fitness, hand-eye coordination, cardio, all that stuff. And then on the days that I'm not training, I really try and obviously watch what I eat. Try to avoid sugars, you know, trans fats and all that stuff. Basically anything artificial I try and keep out of my body. And then now I haven't been keeping very good to that in the off season. I've been enjoying myself a good order of McNuggets here and there. But at the same time, I also, you know, go for runs and stuff like that, trying to make sure. And then I think like I'll do a lot of heat training. So what I'll do is like I will put myself in situations where I'm a lot hotter than I need to be. So like if I'm training in the summer, I'll wear a jacket and sweats.
You just come out to Phoenix and do some heat training.
Exactly. But that's really because I mean we race in 140-degree temperatures sometimes, and you need to be able to take the checkered flag in in your peak performance. Once that checkered flag falls, then it's all okay. You could fall out now, but you have to be there through the entire race. I mean, I remember Nashville this year. It was 102 degrees outside. It had rained 2 hours before the race, so not only was it 102 degrees, it was also 102 degrees and humid. So
Yeah.
it got very, very bad inside the race car, and I think a third of the field ended up having to go to the medical center for IVs, including me.
I remember that race, dude. You guys were like getting out of your cars and just collapsing on the ground right in front of us. It was crazy.
I was lucky that my car chief was there, because I got out, like I took the checker flag and I keyed up. I'm like, all right, thank you guys, great day, because we ended up finishing like 18th or 19th. Like it was a decent day, and it was a pretty good day. And I keyed up. I'm like, all right, thank you guys. Like I might need some of you guys at the car to like help me get out. Then I'm going down the back straightaway, and it starts setting in. I get to pit road, and I key and I say, guys, I need someone here, like now. I get to the car, I open the window net, I climb up onto the door, and as I climb up onto the door, I don't know what it was, but it like, my eyes just kind of like crossed and like went black. Like I didn't pass out completely, but they like crossed and kind of just like faded to black. And I started falling as I'm sitting on the door. So that could have been really bad, because I could have really hurt myself. But luckily he was there, and he was like he caught me and like pushed me against like the roof. Like, all right, don't fall. And I ended up going to the infield care center. But it's funny because it's that adrenaline. Like I was fine a minute prior to that. Like I was driving a race car in those temperatures, hustling as much as I could.
Is that you have a simulator right there?
I'm iRacing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't see the iRacing during COVID season?
Oh yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys were all in their houses
Yep.
racing.
This is where
It was
I
wild.
do all my iRacing and streaming, obviously, because this is my setup right here.
Yeah.
I'll stream from here, and then during the race season, once we get into the thick of it, I'll use this as like a tool to kind of get kind of like my visuals and sight lines all down before I get into a race.
Yeah.
So those aren't like exact to the feel of a real race car, but it helps you kind of find your line and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it's really just, like I said, the biggest thing that iRacing does for me is it helps me get the visuals. That's the number one thing for me that iRacing does, is it helps you go out there and like, okay, this is where this is where that is, because that's something that helps, that a lot of people don't think about, is that's about 70-80% of the whole thing.
Well, yeah, and like you said, your first season in Xfinity, they're not doing practices and they're not doing qualifying, so you're racing at these tracks for the first time out there in a real race. I mean, that's such a challenge. I can't even imagine how you got these other drivers that came up and they had the opportunity to practice, test, drive, learn these tracks before they're thrown out there. And like you said, some are in top tier rides. So you're in a mid-tier ride, no practice, no qualifying, out there trying
Never
to
been to these
put
tracks
good laps up.
either.
That's crazy.
So I mean, there was times where we would start out a race and I'd be running 35th, 34th, like on speed, because I just was getting like that was my practice, was when the green flag threw. Like, and the thing is, so NASCAR separates the races into 3 stages: there's stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. So during that, no practice, no qualifying time, stage 1 was, and this was for a lot of people, stage 1 was learning. Stage 1 was all about learn the track and don't go a lap down. That was what stage 1 was. And so fortunately I was able to figure that out and learn that a lot better than I anticipated, and that helped me out a lot as the races would go on. And that's what led to me finishing 8th at Texas, finishing top 10, my first top 10 at the time. I'd gone and not done I've done Texas before and spent the whole first half of the race learning. Ended up going a lap down at one point. Came back from that to be on the lead lap, finishing 8th.
Man, learning and then get the rewards of learning on the same
yeah.
race. That's the tough part though. Learning stinks sometimes, man, but it pays off in the end.
And you learn every time you're in a race car. Something new happens every time.
Yeah, I could see that. Being that you're Hispanic, how is that? What things have you had to overcome, like in NASCAR?
So, I mean, fortunately, you know, most everybody is, you know, very welcoming. Like, it's probably one of the more welcoming environments I've been in. You know, going to racetracks, you know, all the fans, you know, it's been great. You know, but every so often you do get the stinkers here and there. I mean, I get, you know, people who find some of my info and send death threats and stuff like that, which is something that's happened in the past. Actually, like just recently on Twitter, I put something out about that, and it was like, that's a big thing that, I shouldn't say it's a big thing. It's not very common, but it's like, that's something that, you know, you have to kind of shut out and put in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like it's, you know, it's such a small group of people who are just trying to be as loud as they can. So it's like I see that and I'm like, losers.
Yeah.
And that's a new thing for me. Like I never thought I'd be in a position where I'd have people hate me like that, which is, I guess it's one of those things where all that comes with it, but it's very disappointing that there's people that are like that.
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give to a young kid trying to get into racing?
The biggest thing that I would say to a young kid is focus on yourself. Like, learn to be selfish at a young age. Don't be selfish and be a dick, but learn to be selfish while also caring about those around you. Like, make sure you carve your own path. Don't let too many people from the outside try and guide you in a way that you're not comfortable with. You know, if you can stand up for yourself and have a leg to stand on, then I think that's going to say a lot more about you and your character and your place as a NASCAR driver or a potential NASCAR driver than a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah. So how does it go for how do you move up to like the NASCAR Cup Series? Money.
Yeah, money.
So all right. So if you got like a huge sponsorship, you could run in the Cup Series.
I'm approved now. Well, there's an approval process, like, but I mean,
okay.
The biggest barrier is the money. I mean,
Gotcha.
you're looking
That's
at
crazy.
You know, 3-4 times what an Xfinity race, 3, 4, 5 times what an Xfinity race costs.
Is it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it like something? Does it cost like $1 million per race? Something. Like
I don't think so. No. I mean, I'm sure there's a team that'll want that, but it's not. But it is a considerable amount of money.
I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I'm sure there's a few drivers that it's about that per race. But I mean, it's crazy. There's so much politics in it too, isn't there? I mean,
it's like that in every motorsport, though.
Yeah.
Every motorsport has it.
That's
like
true.
Yeah, I mean that's. I mean, I think I think that goes beyond motorsports too. I think it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's part of it. You know, it's about how you combat that. You know, because, I mean, I'm some Hispanic kid from Southern California who didn't have the money to make it anywhere past late models, and here I am. So it's about how you combat that. You know, like I said, I shouldn't have made it this far, but I'm very aware of that, and that's why I wear that on my sleeve, because I also know that I, you know, should feel very fortunate to be here. So that's something that I focus a lot on.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, even my job, I look around and I go, why are people paying me to do this? You know? Like, I can't believe I'm getting paid money to sit at my desk all day and, like, you know, I'm making a living. It's a dream. So if you're living your dream, man, that's where happiness comes, and that's incredible. So I guess, like, the Cup Series, you know, racing for a top-tier team is the ultimate dream. Would you be okay if you ended up, you know, Xfinity driver career?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as I'm driving race cars for my career, That's all that
Heck yeah.
I care about. I mean, if I'm racing sprint cars, dirt racing, if I'm racing sports cars and road racing, if I'm driving monster trucks and Monster Jam, I mean, my dream is NASCAR. You know, that's my dream. But as long as I'm pursuing a professional career as a driver, you know, in some sort of racing series, I'm happy. You know, if I'm able to provide for, you know, myself and, you know, whatever I end up doing in my life, and also get to chase a dream, then I mean, that's amazing.
Heck yeah. I'll be cheering for you on Saturdays, man. Most definitely.
Yeah, let's do it. I've always ran 23, and that's simply just because I was born on September 23rd.
Dang. I got
What's
one.
your? Yeah, go, Cody.
I saw that Jeff Gordon blender, man. Did you bust that thing out yet?
Yeah, I've used it. I made some smoothies.
Nice. Nice. So you're a Jeff Gordon fan growing up?
Yeah, I was a Jeff Gordon fan growing up.
Same. Huge.
Me too. Me three.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Nice.
I had all that stuff.
Who's your favorite driver now other than Ryan Vargas?
Me?
No, Ryan.
Oh, me? I mean, it's different now.
It's different now. You have to
It's
race
different.
him now, huh?
It's different because I know these guys.
Yeah.
So
You
it's like-
can't say it now. You gotta be like, all right.
I mean, like, I have my guys that I root for and my guys I don't.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Are you into NFTs?
Not yet. I haven't looked into that really much at all. I've had some opportunities come up to look into that stuff. I know my former teammate Landon Castle. He's his sponsor Voyager, and I got to meet all those people and learn about that.
That's
legit.
What about what company or brand would be your dream sponsor?
I want an energy drink sponsorship so bad. God,
Alright,
that'd be
very
so
good.
cool. I am a big because it's energy drinks are loud and crazy. There's fire everywhere. I want that. I have like they used to do it when Monster sponsored the Cup Series. They had like a Monster like stunt zone, and they need that every NASCAR race. Like there needs to be pyrotechnics at every NASCAR race. They need to treat it like it's Supercross. I mean, this is the highest stock car series in North America, and there's no flames when the car takes the green flag.
Yeah.
Like that's dumb.
That's dumb. There's no
Is
flames.
Red Bull in NASCAR, or are they just in?
No, they were.
F1?
They were.
Yeah.
They were. But like there needs to be flames
Yeah.
and fire and like fireworks and like craziness.
Yeah, we gotta push NASCAR for some flames. You're right. It's unreal.
They did it at they did it at Gateway and Darlington this year, and it was really
You did
sick.
the All-Star race, don't you?
The All-Star races in as at the LA Coliseum, which is the only stadium race on the schedule for NASCAR.
That would be way better though. The cars take off. There's big fireworks and flames that go off.
They need to. I've always said it. Why don't we have like flamethrowers when the cars like take the green flag? Like I'm dead serious. Like
True.
it's like such a small thing. Like it doesn't change yours and my excitement. But like this 12-year-old kid who's at a NASCAR race,
Yeah.
he probably would like to see all that.
Yeah, definitely. Cody, you got anything else?
I think I got a few. I mean, it sounds like you're gonna have to make an energy drink, Paul, and sponsor Ryan.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I if I was given free reign on how I'd market something, an energy drink would be one of it.
That's dope.
Or at least put a Metafan on his car for a race next season. You got any open races?
Yeah.
That'd be fun. So you are racing next season, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm finishing up my plans at the moment. I have a couple things I need to do. I need a couple dotted lines to sign. But right now, I know I'll be driving.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Keep it going. But
Oh yeah.
No, I don't got too much else. I got 3 kids out there, probably destroyed half my house by now, but
Yeah.
All
it
right.
was worth it.
All right, Ryan. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and best of luck the rest or the next season. And could you let the listeners know where they can follow you at?
Yeah. So everybody can follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Ryan Vargas _23. Facebook you can find it Ryan Vargas. And then on Instagram, I've been trying to change my username for years, but it won't let me. It's RTRV23.